And now, our feature presentation.
To infinity and beyond!
My name's Bond. James Bond.
That'll do, pig.
Bad boys, what you gonna do?
Sorry with the box, what was in the box?
Damn! Ew, get off of me! Ugh, I'm
A lot of people go to college for 7 years.
I know. They're called doctors.
Houston, we have a problem.
Tonight on Crossfire, we're covering communism and poetry. Welcome into 52/1995, your live movie conversation podcast where we dive deep into the movies of 1995. I'm your host, Cody, and I'm thrilled to be joined this week by my fantastic co-host, Ryan. Welcome, Ryan.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
It's me, Ryan.
It's already off to a good start. Well, if you never watch us again, that's fine. If you have never seen us before and you're tuning in for the first time, we're so glad that you're here. Every week, 52 of them to be exact, we explore a different film from the year 1995, whether it's a classic hit or a quirky gem. We're somewhere in the middle. We dive into the year's important releases, discuss them in detail, and chat with my guest, about their thoughts and experiences with the specific movie. We usually do themed months, and because of the Oscars at the beginning of this month is the theme title is And the Oscar Goes To, where every film that we're talking about this month was nominated for Best Picture at the 1996 Academy Awards. Today's movie of choice is called Il Postino. But before we jump into that movie, let's welcome Ryan again. Ryan, thank you again. Have you ever seen this film?
Yeah. Thanks for having me again. I have seen this film. I think I saw it in college. Maybe when I was first getting into discovering films that weren't, pushed at me. And I loved it a lot then, so I was very excited to rewatch it and see if it held up to my memory. I'm also a Pablo Neruda fan, and so this is a very cool concept for a movie. And I'm glad we're getting a little overseas on 52/2. I love that.
Yeah, I love to have a couple films every year that are a little bit, that's a lot of us haven't seen. I have not seen this movie. I'd never seen this movie before. Kind of not on my radar. And honestly, I thought this was like the Italian version of the Kevin Costner film that comes out like 3 years later. I was like, oh, this is just going to be some weird sci-fi.
I've never seen that. That's like an apocalyptic thing where there's it's like a Death Stranding for Kevin Costner. Also, it's kind of interesting because this in a movie I'm sure will come up occasionally. Well, I'll bring up occasionally because I always associate this movie with Cinema Paradiso, which came out like 5 years earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched around the same time. So I watched these two Italian films next to each other that are very sweet and human and uplifting, that celebrate life. But also, as a film nerd, like I'm sure Italy made a ton of great films in the 80s and 90s or whatever, but I don't know them that well. When I think of Italian film, obviously you've got like the neo-realist stuff, Rossellini, Buonanotte, however you say that, Fellini. Yeah. So like 50s and 60s Italian film that is very classic. And then you have like a lot of like spaghetti Western stuff in the 60s too that I associate with Italian film. But after that, not a lot of them stick out to me as things I've come across. So these two together kind of always stick in my mind as somewhere close to my lifetime great Italian film.
Yeah. I'll throw another one at you. Life is Beautiful is another important Italian film during like a 10-year stretch too.
Yeah, right. I think it's like 11 years or something technically that those three films came out, and they both have these same, like I said, warm, human.
Yeah.
Maybe not like kids would enjoy them. Life is Beautiful is very dark in certain ways, and the other two aren't for kids necessarily, but they are very like all audiences celebrations of humanity.
Yeah, it's interesting. I never even thought about it as I've still never seen Cinema Paradiso, even though I know I will probably enjoy it a lot. It's on tons of lists.
Movie fan. As much as this is a love story to poetry, Cinema Paradiso is a very similar movie that's a love story to movies.
Yeah, I know I would love it. It's on 1001 list. It's on a bunch of best of lists that I've seen. So never got around to it. But you know what? I am glad that I got around to this one, and I'm glad that I forced myself to watch this one. I've been talking shit on this movie for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because I was like, why is this even nominated? It can't be that good. This guy
Yeah.
took the best acting spot from Tom Hanks. It can't be that good.
Right, and because of like maybe the most interesting trivia that we'll get to about this movie, like maybe it was a little overpraised because of that aspect. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we are probably on the same wavelength on that regard. But I liked it in the same way that like when we talked about Babe, like I know I'm comparing a movie about poetry and life and like real humans to a movie about Babe, but Babe is very earnest, very sweet. It has its dark moments in it, but I don't know, maybe the night.
Well, yeah, we talked about Babe together, and I also I like this movie a lot, but I think I also felt some Nobody's Fool vibes a little bit. We talked about that on the podcast together.
Mhm.
But at this point, having like watched way too many movies that a person should have in their lifetime, I just like anything that hasn't been overdone to my eyes.
Yeah.
I do like earnestness and sincerity a lot. I don't need that in all my movies, but I want it around a little more often than it is. Anything that's like earnest and sincere these days seems to be very corny and childish, not very adult or real. So like seeing a movie that it isn't apologetic about being earnest, I really love. And then a movie that's mostly about the human condition that's not bleak and horrible either, like I like a lot. So those things stick out about me about El Postino that I really appreciate in movies, and trying to keep up with new movies or trying to watch the best movies of all time, you don't come across as much. So that's
Right.
yeah, unique.
Yeah, these are nice, like especially you and I who do like these lists and like we keep talking about the 1001 movies to see before you die.
Mhm.
It's nice, you probably end up very funny in the chat. You end up watching like all the ones that you already know that you're gonna like early.
Yeah.
So I've done this. I'm like, oh, I've done like pretty much all the comedies that you could possibly list. And then I'm like, oh, I've got all these like really long, boring, silent films that I got to trek through. But then occasionally you'll run across something that really surprises you or that, lifts your spirits a little bit. And like, I felt like this was kind of that. I was surprised by this movie. I wasn't expecting it, and it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. So, I mean,
Yeah.
not too bad at all. So let's talk about it a little bit more. It's named Il Postino, which means the postman in Italian, for those who don't know. It came out June 14th, 1995. It was directed by Michael Radford. In some releases, our star, Massimo Troisi, I don't know if that's correct on either of those pronunciations, but he's also kind of credited as the director on some releases. It was written by, several different people. This is bad. Ava Pavignano, Michael Radford, Furio Scarpelli, Giacomo Scarpelli, and Massimo Troisi, based on the novel Burning Patience by Antonio Scarmetta, which it was also made into a movie.
Yeah. No, it was a movie that was not very well seen, was adapted into the book.
Okay, so it's the opposite. I got it the wrong way.
And then the book inspired, it got adapted into this movie.
Interesting. So I think it was like a 1983 movie. I'd like to just check it out just to see.
Yeah.
Anyway, the cast of this movie is not a deep cast, and you're not going to know any of these people. But Massimo Troisi is our main character, Mario. Felipe Nore as Pablo Neruda. I think he's a French actor.
He's an actor I have seen before, and when I looked at his filmography, I was like, okay, I've seen him around. But one of his most famous roles is Cinema Paradiso. He's big in that.
Yeah, and interesting. He had to have all of his lines dubbed over. Did they? I wonder if they did that in that movie.
I don't know. I don't know because he's not Italian, but those are two Italian films. I do know that they did that from scratch in this movie. Like I think they planned from the beginning to have an Italian dub. So it wasn't like they filmed it and said, "Oh no, it's too bad. He can't do a good enough Italian. We have to go back and do that." They had an Italian actor. That was always their plan, I guess, based on Felipe Nore's Italian ability at Italian, I guess.
It took. I didn't realize it at first when they were talking, but then as it went on, I was like, he's not making
It's
those
so hard in
voices.
older movies, and then it's weird in foreign movies based on like their production style compared to Hollywood stuff. Because so often I've been watching a lot of Mario Bava, speaking of Italian film
Oh
lately.
yeah.
And all of those early movies that are really good are dubbed over by the original actor. And that used to be more
Mhm.
common, I think, because of it's being hard to get really good sound, that they said, screw it, we'll do all the acting and then we'll just dub all of the dialogues, even with the original actors over again.
Right. Jackie Chan used to do that too.
Oh, yeah, I believe that.
Yeah. Again, I'll keep going. Maria Grazia Cucinotta as Beatrice Russo, Renato Scarpa as the telegrapher, Jeez. Linda Moretti as Donna Rosa, and Mariano Regilo as Di Cosimo. The synopsis, which I actually did change from Google because it was wrong. It said when exiled Cuban poet, and he's Chilean.
Yeah.
Yes, he's definitely Chilean. That's a big
Like you
part
said,
of that's a big part of this movie. When exiled Chilean poet Pablo Neruda arrives on a tiny Italian isle, there's so much new mail that Mario, an unemployed, uneducated layabout, is hired as a postman. His job is simply to deliver Neruda's daily mail. Mario soon becomes a student of the poet, learning the art of poetry to woo a local barmaid and tell about the struggles of the working class villagers. A firm friendship develops, and the postman turns into a changed man. This movie had a budget of $3 million, and it has a box office return of $33 million. Rotten Tomatoes, again, we have, we haven't run into a score on Rotten Tomatoes below this one with our Best Picture nominees, and this one's at 94%. IMDb gave it a 7.8 out of 10, and Letterboxd has this at a 4.0 out of 5. Roger Ebert liked this movie, gave it 3.5 stars out of 4. He said the guiding spirit behind the production seems to have been Troisi, an Italian director and actor who co-wrote the screenplay and postponed heart surgery in order to act in the title role. I also liked Philippe Noiret as the poet. Together, they make this good-hearted little film into a quiet meditation on fate, tact, and poetry. I don't know if you read his full review of this, or if you even got a chance to look at it. But the first lines of that review are: the first time we see Mario, the hero of the Postman, we think perhaps he's the R word.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I definitely did think that.
and then he's having a conversation with.
It's hilarious. Line 1.
Yeah, first line. And then the second line is he's having a conversation with his father, who also seems to be the
I didn't think that, but that's funny.
Or perhaps just engrossed in his soup.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought you'd enjoy that. I couldn't find too many negative reviews, but I did find this one of Martin Scribbs of Low IQ Canadian, which is something. And it's just Z's. He was tired.
He was tired.
He's sleepy.
There's not a lot of there's not a lot of explosion. There's not a lot of nudity. There's no twists.
It's kind of a twist.
It's a sleepy movie.
It's a sleepy movie.
But it's trying to be one. It's not bad.
This movie got 5 Academy Award nominations: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Dramatic Score, which it actually won for. Other things that happened, opera. There was an opera based on this film that was produced in 2010. That's a little bit of legacy there for you. So let's dive a little bit deeper into our discussion, and let's talk about some of the scenes that really stuck out to you. I'm struggling.
Absolutely. Well, let's see. Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a lot of setting up scenes of Mario, kind of being lonely and stuck with his dad, who's a fisherman. He seems stoic and happy with his being an old man fisherman, but Mario is unhappy. You get some movie clips of Pablo Neruda being exiled from Chile. I got into a weird rabbit hole, and I still didn't fully figure out, just trying to figure out, like, this takes place in the 1950s, and I think Pablo Neruda was exiled twice, and it wasn't to Italy. But it was when Salvador Allende was like the first like communist democratically elected leader in the world, I think. And then later on, there was a military coup by Pinochet, but it was kind of hard because half of Wikipedia was wrong. They kept saying the 70s or the 50s, and then the book that this is based off actually, and I assume the original movie makes it take place in the 1970s, which Neruda
He
would have
died
to be
yeah, he died like 3 years later, I think. In
Yeah, so
73, I think, is when he died.
This is during his Nobel Prize stuff in the 50s. And then they, when he leaves the island later, you hear about him being ambassador to France, which is a thing he did later on. Anyways, there's a little confused timeline. But yeah, anyways, Pablo Neruda is being exiled from Chile as a communist, the political exile, former politician, and is coming to this little sleepy island off the coast of Naples, coast of Italy, near Naples. And I guess, and then since Mario's lonely and his dad tells him to get a job, he gets a job paying almost nothing to ride his bike all the way up the mountain to give the famous poet his letters every day. And I think the first important scene is probably when they first meet.
Yeah, I put delivering Neruda's mail as the very first scene that I had. I think there's some stuff in the beginning, but to credit Roger Ebert in his first line of that, I really did. I was very confused about this, our lead character, for a little bit.
I feel like there's a lot of movies that do it in different ways, but it seems like to be a thing that great filmmakers always want to like capture the pure human spirit. And so they write a character that's very simple and pure. And then they really struggle with where on the intellectual disability scale that person comes across as, or how you're supposed to see them as. I've watched many movies that like kind of blunder in that way, from being there to like, that's the one I was gonna breaking the waves are on two sides of that spectrum. And I think that you quickly learn that Mario is uneducated, uninspired, unexposed to a lot of things, but that he's not intellectually deficient in any way.
Right. Because he can read. That's like for one of the first parts of the
when he gets a job, he's like one of the few people on the island that can read and write.
So he's probably more educated than 90% of that island anyway. Him and the other postmen, I think, are probably the most educated on the island.
But I think he's awkward, nervous, doesn't fit in, doesn't know who he is, where he needs to be. And so that leads to a lot of stuttering or nervousness, plus kind of what I assume is considered in his circle a childish, like saying things out loud that are obvious or silly or considered childish. And that does make him seem a little dumb at first.
I wonder if it was a choice, the way that he's speaking and the way that he's, I wonder if it's I've never seen any of this other guy in any of films that he's been in, or if it has, to do with his condition too.
What condition does he have?
His heart condition, like in real life.
Oh, the actors. Yeah, I'm sorry. The actors.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit. He's also like, the little I read about Massimo or whatever, he was like beloved in smaller things as more of a like kind of a Charlie Chaplin type, like a little goofy comedian. He's very sweet. And I think
kind of like a Roberto Benigni.
A little bit, yeah, like a clown, but a clown with a sweetheart. I think his work before that did a lot of that, and his comedy shines through as he has this like thin, crooked smile and these big, wide, like innocent eyes, and then he just says silly things. So I think that's coming a little bit of that, where he's playing up the tramp side of his,
That's a good point. Yeah,
character.
I like that. I like that a lot, comparing him to like those guys. Yeah, I think we get. I will say that like early scenes with him, I was a little bit confused, like just about what we were supposed to take away from it. But I do think we get that very quickly. He gets the job. He established. Why doesn't he have a job? He's 40 years old. It looks like, and like
I don't think he was supposed to be either. I don't think the character was.
Do you think he's supposed to be like super young?
I think that what I read, I think Pablo Neruda is supposed to be in his 40s.
Yes,
and he's supposed to be like 20.
Okay, that would make so much more sense to me.
Yes.
But he was in his 60s and this guy was in his 40s. I was like, I don't understand. But
yeah, but I mean, you could forgive it a little bit. I mean, you could suspend some disbelief. This is an isolated island in 1952 that doesn't have running water. Like they have some like news clips come in and some newspapers, but nobody cares. Nothing really affects them that much. So yeah, the kind of isolation in mid-century, before internet or whatever, like it probably keeps people in like a state of like idyllic existence, but also like perpetual childhood compared to the bustling world outside of their island.
I do think it's interesting that they are all very like in awe of this poet slash uh,
I don't
politician
think they
that
are
comes
though.
to.
I think they're excited that their island was in a news clip. I think that's what all it is.
You think
Somebody
that's what
famous
it was?
Yeah. I don't think that they, I mean, except for his boss, who's hilarious.
Yes.
His boss in the post office, the telegraph guy, like he knows who Pablo Neruda is, and he's the only person on the island you hear. Even later in the movie, when Neruda finally comes down from the mountain and goes to the bar, and people are like, "Oh, it's Neruda. Neruda's here." Nobody's like, "He's the guy whose poetry I love. He's the guy whose
Yeah.
politics I admire. He's the guy who did a lot of brave things in Chile." They just know that there's like a famous guy that lives up in the mountain. And
Yeah.
when they see themselves and their island being shown in one of the film clips they get from the mainland, once a week or whatever, they're excited about that.
No, that makes a lot more sense. Now,
That's what
I
John
would.
Massimo thinks too, until he, is just kind of interested and bored and has nothing to do. So he decides to like learn more about this guy.
Yeah, I think I mean, it's that idea of like a famous person just walks by you and you didn't know that person was famous at all. But now that you've found out this information, you're like, oh, I just passed this person. Like that's the only thing you're going to talk about. Like, I guess that could that too, because we do see Massimo. He's like, oh yeah, this guy is is a famous poet, and I'm going to get him to sign this book and everything, like to make himself seem cooler.
Yeah, right. Well, and also like I'm trying to find an author. I'm trying not to be mean. Like I read a Dan Brown book. It was fun, right? But I like if I don't like Dan Brown very much, or I don't really respect his writing, if he got a house like 4 blocks from me, I would tell everybody I knew. Like Dan Brown's got a house like 4 blocks from me. Isn't that crazy? And it wouldn't be because I'm such a fan, Or
Yeah. But in that exact same respect, that's kind of the impression I get, especially once he arrives to the town and everybody is enamored with. You're right. It's about the island being recognized more than because the guy stands up in the theater. He's like, "Hey, that was me."
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that. It is a little awkward whenever he does start. He is awkward. It's awkward when he starts delivering because he just kind of stands there at the guy's gate, and then maybe we'll ring his little bicycle bell. This guy's like,
cute. There are a few times when I felt cringe. I really think that like the stuff around the autograph was funny, but it made me feel like secondhand embarrassment a little bit. And
yes,
like,
yeah.
I alone, you guys are goofy. But yeah, I think the awkwardness is part of it.
But I think it's not embarrassing to to him or anybody on the island. They would be impressed by that. And the only two that get would feel that embarrassment about that are Neruda and his wife.
Like everybody else would just like stare unapologetically because I mean he's the interloper, right? He's the weirdo, right? And whereas Mario thinks that it feels weird himself. And I mean we'll get to it later in the movie, but I mean I think the biggest arc he obviously learns these special things. It has a developed life because of his relationship with Neruda that gives him the confidence to do these things. But the second half of the movie, which I have issues with, Mario's not nervous. Mario is like saintly calm. When all these things go on around him, he's just kind of like happy-go-lucky, and he gets frustrated by things, which is good. That's a sign of confidence that he doesn't have at the beginning, the ability to express frustration. But he doesn't, put his hands behind his back and squirm around nervously because he doesn't know who he is in the world. He's kind of established himself later on.
Right. And I think he gets that too. That confidence after Pablo leaves, and he kind of feels
about that. I have the most feelings. I think the first half of this movie is very well structured and beautiful and charming, and the second half has a lot of good and bad parts to it.
I was about to say the second half still got me in the place where I was not expecting it to happen. So there's a really beautiful stuff in the second part, but I do agree with you. It is the most flawed part. What's your next scene that you have?
Well, I think that the first meeting is important, and you really, I think one of the images that would stand out in this movie in your memory is probably the house that Pablo Neruda lives in, that courtyard where a lot of these important conversations happen. It's very picturesque with the mountains behind, a lot of beautiful, scenes in the background, natural scenes. But the second meeting is when he begins to talk to him about poetry.
Mm-hmm. That the metaphor speech is that the metaphor one? Yeah, I love that.
And it starts off again very. I mean, a lot of this is very saccharine, and especially if like you have to have some kind of respect for the power of poetry, even if you're not a poet or a person who reads poetry to like enjoy it. But it is, he comes to him like a child, and he goes, I read the other day, what was it? Something about the way hairdressers smell makes me cry, or I am tired of being a man, and these things made me feel things. You know, Don Pablo. Why do I feel these things when I hear that? And Pablo Neruda kind of begrudgingly starts to like say, "Well, that's a metaphor. That's poetry. You know, you're achieving some feeling with a weird combination of words that you can never describe literally with words."
I love the whole beginning of him like learning metaphors, and like anytime that he says a metaphor, he's like, metaphor, right?
Yeah.
I love that. I was like, describe to him what a simile is, please.
Yeah.
But no, I really did like that beginning conversation, him learning about metaphors, and the next conversation that they have, is really good. I think that's the Beatrice one, because I think maybe.
Yeah, well, they meet on the beach, right? Before Beatrice.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, so there are these series of conversations, where they talk about the Nobel Prize, and he talks about poetry. There's some really cute interchanges, and this is where you learn too that Mario definitely isn't dumb, because he's ignorant about anything about poetry, but like he understands everything Pablo says. He asks more questions. He like doesn't get stuck on things too much, and he becomes more interested in it. Then he goes back and reads the book that he got Pablo to sign. And I think when they meet on the beach, they have another really good, that's also the really good conversation about poetry. But that's also where Neruda also starts to talk to him a little bit about communism without like teaching him anything about it. This movie's take on communism is weird. We'll talk about that later. But he talks about the running water and why don't you complain and why don't you make something happen? Political activism. But then we get into the big crutch in the middle of the movie, which is Beatrice, this beautiful woman that he falls in love with and needs Pablo's help to help him woo.
Yes. I have that was my next scene, is meeting Beatrice. Just that whole where he walks in and she's playing foosball.
Yeah.
And he starts playing with her and she keeps destroying him.
Yeah.
Is that when she puts the ball in her mouth? No, it's not.
It is. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's the first scene with her, really, is them playing foosball and him being distracted by her beauty. So her kicking his ass a lot. And then when he's not looking, she puts the ball in the mouth and like says to take it. And then when he tries to, he spits it on the table and walks away as he's like dropping his quarters to play another game.
Yeah.
He becomes smitten.
I love that. I like this scene. It is a little weird.
It is weird, yeah.
Because I don't know how she really feels about him in that moment. Because she's used to all these guys, these fishermen, these sailors coming in and ogling her and all that. Does she think that he's just doing that, or does she think he's simpler than that? It's a small island. Surely she knows who Mario is.
Like you don't know exactly what her motives are, and as a character, she changes drastically and fits whatever Mario's story needs her to be. Really, she's not a fully developed character. She's stunningly beautiful, like in like an Italian like female ideal way. I wouldn't point out every movie we talk about when a beautiful woman's on screen, but she's like insanely like gorgeous, and so she is more like a poetic muse in that sense. Just this gorgeous. Yeah, it also, that whole place does seem dirty. Chat's talking about putting the foosball in the mouth being kind of gross. Because it also doesn't feel like a clean place at all.
Not at all.
To be fair, it seems like she might be the only one, her and her aunt might be the only person who's responsible for cleaning it.
It's true. She looks like Michael Jackson a little bit. If you put a picture of them next to each other, she's beautiful, stunningly beautiful. You are absolutely right.
She has like a very unique like facial dynamic of
it's
like
the eyebrow. It's the eyebrows and the eyes. That's what it is.
I could see
because I immediately thought.
back.
Yes, a little bit. Yeah, I almost or when it happened, when she showed up on screen, I was like, she kind of looks like Michael Jackson. I thought the same thing. There's like a thing around the internet that has Sandra Bullock next to Michael Jackson, and it shows how close they look alike. And I'm like, no way, it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
I was like, Sandra Bullock's beautiful. So's Michael Jackson, I guess. So. Yeah. You didn't think there'd be any Michael Jackson talk today?
Yeah, you'd find a way to get it in every episode.
Every episode,
weird, Cody.
Say love you. So yeah, there's the scene, and then we get more of the Neruda stuff, and which I'm sure that's what you have next.
Yeah, the next whole section is more about Beatrice as the like driving action. around him deciding to stop asking about poetry, maybe become more poetic.
Mhm.
But there is an important scene next that I think a long scene between him and Pablo Neruda, where Pablo gives him a notebook to start writing in, shows him the recorder, which becomes the ability to record sound, which becomes important later, and tells that coal miner story, which I do think is like maybe the most Pablo Neruda ever speaks on camera about like communistic ideas in the movie.
Yeah, I really the recorder scene I really like. Yes, because it comes up later. I wish it was a little bit more established as a device in the movie and seen a little bit more in the opening half. But I love that he gets a message back from Chile and he starts to record his own. He's like, "Oh, I'm actually here with my friend Mario," and he calls him his friend there, which is I think important too.
Yes.
And then he asks Mario like what tell him about this beautiful island that I'm on, tell me a beautiful thing about this island, and he just says Beatrice Russo.
Yeah, he says tell of the wonders of your island, and he only can say her name. Yeah,
which is adorable. Just so in love. So I really like that scene.
yeah, and I do think it's kind of the soul of the relationship. It's in the middle of their actual interacting with each other relationship, giving the notebook, establishing Neruda's like faraway influence and his love for like the common man, and then and the recorder is pretty important.
Yeah.
What you have next?
The wedding scene is what I had next, which has a lot of different aspects to it. At the beginning, it's like them fighting with the priest about Neruda.
That's very funny. That's a very funny scene. I will say, I'll add to that Pablo Neruda does come down from the mountain, seemingly for the first and only time, really. Well, not the only time, but the first time.
He comes. Yeah, I was about to say he comes down to help
Mario out. He finally, like, because he's always keeping Mario like, oh, this guy's just kind of a pest. He bugs me like once a day. But he's finally like a friend with him, and he goes, all right, I'm going to help you, charm this woman. So he comes down to the cafe. Everybody's like, Neruda's there. And then he makes a scene out of like, I think just inscribing the notebook to him and saying, here, you're ready to write your poetry. You have your inspiration. And that becomes the turning point of Beatrice finally being interested in Mario. Also, after throwing the line out when she walks by and he's like, your smile's like a butterfly. And she just keeps walking.
When he inscribes that, he's inscribing it as exactly how he wanted him to in the beginning of the movie. And I feel like the camera...
That wasn't translated in the subtitles I saw. Do you know what it said?
Yeah, I think it said to my or your personal friend, Pablo Neruda, or something like that.
Right, yeah.
But you see the camera go to her eyes once he's kind of like finished writing that. So she was impressed by the fact that, he is friends with Pablo Neruda, not just this postman. So I think that she was impressed by that. But the subtitles were bad. I am very sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I mean, they once I figured out like how to read between them, I think everything was pretty good.
I was about to say there was a lot of like U's and me's.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad personal pronouns going on, like misgendered pronouns and U's and me's all mixed up.
Email.
That was so funny.
That one was weird.
And then I think there's just a montage of funny stuff with the aunts being, concerned about her falling for this guy, and then her, defending it like, oh, he writes me beautiful poetry, but they eventually do get married.
And
ends up being a witness to the wedding and coming to the reception and giving a toast to the newlyweds.
I love though that Mario is so like dead set. He's like, I have to have Neruda here, or I'm not doing this. And his wife, or his soon-to-be wife, fiance, looks at. He's like, "Are you kidding me? Like, look at me."
Yes. He says, "It seems like you're more interested in him being a witness to our wedding than actually marrying me."
Yes, which I think is very funny. But I do think that this is a good scene. It's also a very important scene. We get the dinner scene after that. And Neruda learns that he's allowed to go back to Chile. There's no longer a warrant out for his arrest or whatever. So
and this is around the halfway point of the movie, and this is where Neruda exits for a very long time. Pretty much the whole movie.
And I do think that that's a big factor of this, the next half of this movie, because I do love their dynamic together so much. I think it makes that front half, which seemingly doesn't have a lot of plot. I mean, it has the wooing of Beatrice, but like their conversations are just about poetry, and like some would say that that's kind of boring to them. But like if you don't have these main characters doing it, then it would be boring. But it was very sweet. And
yeah, I imagine people being bored by that, but that's the soul of this movie. That's what this movie's trying to, and I think the original story is trying to talk about. Like, what if? And there have been a lot of plays and books and movies that are about what if a random person, like actually met this author and spent a day on the train with them? What would that conversation be like? So it's not for everybody action oriented, but I feel like if people like this movie and had to remember it years later, they're going to remember them talking in Neruda's house and courtyard. And they might remember how it ends, but the next hour is probably going to be mostly.
And I think it's just such a weird storyline in there, like with the politician trying to get running water on. It feels so weird. Yeah, I don't love it at all. And it's like it felt like they were trying to force a villain into this movie, and
they needed to have, like you said, I think in the first half of the movie, they needed more. If they wanted to do that, they needed more of that, the politics of the area. They needed more of Mario talking to his neighbors and his family, his dad maybe, about like these things that he's learning from Neruda, and then be like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're being weird. Like a more of a steady arc of growth about these things. And you keep Neruda around longer, and then maybe only make him gone for half an hour.
And you just do a time thing like they did. Like, oh, he comes back to the island 5 years later. Like, you don't need to, have that whole like, oh, did you see Neruda's in the paper again? He's in Rome, or he could just hop over here. Like, you don't need all that part of it.
So yeah, there's like in kind of capitalist. I think they're Christian Democrats. It's what they call the party, who comes and kind of woos the people with promise of running water. Brings a bunch of workers there. Mario has to work in the kitchen to feed them. I will point out, like, one short scene that is one of the most beautiful in the movie is the cinematography of those beautiful vegetables with while he's cutting them in the kitchen. Like, they look delicious. The garlic, the tomato, the onions. And then in his mind, as he's doing this like menial task, he's making metaphors about, the vegetables and what they look like and seem like. I thought that was like a very short scene, but one of the most like cinematographic, I guess, like accomplishments.
I don't know what it is, but every time somebody uses a knife and they're not playing like a chef in a movie, they're just me and you using a knife, I get so like, I freak. I do
get nervous. Yeah, because I've cut a million onions and I get nervous every time I do it.
I'm just so worried. Like, I was sitting next to Alyssa and I gasped when he had the knife out, like cut the onion the first time. I was like, because I was so worried about him. And I don't, Mario. I mean,
yeah, he's not he's just a poet. He's not a genius.
Poets are fat. He's not fat. So, so the next thing I have, like, during this kind of part of the movie, I guess, for the next time, is just when he suddenly has to go back up to the house, and
he gets a letter, and this is the appropriate time to talk about it. He gets a letter that's Pablo Neruda's secretary, but they think it might be from him, and there's also little things where there's some quotes in a newspaper where Pablo Neruda talks about the time he spent on the island, but he doesn't mention any.
He calls them simple.
Yeah, right. And then talks more about the beauty and everything, the natural beauty there. But they get a letter and they go, oh, maybe he's finally writing his old best friend Mario. And it's from the secretary saying, hey, there's some stuff that was left behind in that house. We need you to send that along, which makes Mario go up to that house and then find the recorder. But this is I felt bad. I didn't like the second half of this movie because I don't know. I think I'm supposed to love that Mario remains loyal to Neruda throughout all of this time. But I can't help but feel the way his family feels of like, hey, that's cool that you had this great moment, with this guy, but he doesn't love you like like he doesn't care about you like that, bro. And obviously you can tell from his actions that he doesn't care about it. And I don't know. I don't think the movie wants me to feel that, but I both times I watched it, I was like, why is Neruda a jerk? Just say hi to your friend or some Mario, grow up and just realize you had a cool summer, or year with him and that, whatever, you moved on.
You don't think that was because, like, I do feel he knows. I feel like he's so much more mature in the second half of this movie because I think it was forced to be. Like, he has a job now, he has to do all these things now. Like,
I do love that him changing into a more mature, confident person. So there is
yes.
like a little bit of like a Job thing going on there.
Yeah,
Where
I
it's
was
like,
thinking
yeah,
Job.
betray him. Like, just talk some shit about him for once. And he's like, no, that's my homie. I'll never will. I don't care if he never talks to me again.
Mhm.
I'll always be loyal to this guy who kind of, and I mean, he says, like, he gave me everything I am. Like, he gave me a sense of like confidence and wisdom in order to look at the world around me, to control the world around me, to take care of my fellow people, and be more human in this place that I never felt comfortable in. So whether that was just a summer living next to a genius, or he was actually my best friend, I'll never talk ill of him. I'll always love him.
Yeah. So I like that a little bit, but I understand what you're saying too. With
There's
the
moments when I'm like, oh, come on,
yeah,
it's bad.
yeah, I felt bad. But yeah, he finds that recorder up there and he starts recording the sounds of the island. I don't know if he knows that that's ever gonna go to Neruda, or if he's just doing that more for himself, a catharsis thing,
I
just
think
to
it's
be like,
he
hey,
does plan to send it back. He says, I'm going to send all these things back. I think maybe he's trying to send the tape back with it, as hey, now I have an
mhm.
excuse that Neruda might actually see these things. I can send something along. Or that he's just going to do that in general. But because later on, the wife mentions he wanted it to be sent to you, but I couldn't, part with it.
Oh God, yeah. If man, I wouldn't part with anything like
No.
that
Yeah.
either.
And
Like,
again, if I was
it
a
was
wife,
so beautiful.
if I was Beatrice, I'd be like, I know how much you love Pablo, but whatever, I'm keeping that. Like, that's mine now,
He he made me name my freaking child
Yeah.
Pablito. But
Yeah,
yeah, when
yeah. He goes around the island and he just makes, he just softly says, number one, the sound of fishing nets. My favorite is he's like, number seven, the sound of the starry night sky on my island, and holds the microphone up to the sky at night. Records all these different sounds from the island that he thinks Pablo might miss.
it seemed almost like Wes Anderson-y when he
Yeah.
was doing that. Yeah. And obviously this was before that, but yeah, it seems a little bit like that.
And
I
then the
think of
recorder, which like you said, should have been in the movie a little more frequently. The ability to voice record, this technology that came with Pablo Neruda and was left behind, like, is a very good metaphor for his increased connection with the outer world and his increased power with communicating himself and appreciating the other world, the outer world too. So it's pretty nice.
he's almost like Prometheus. Instead of bringing fire to this island, he brought poetry,
Yeah,
but not communism.
but not communism.
Not very well.
Not very well. Oh, yeah, I was going to mention, like, this movie treats communism well. It's really just between the lines, though. There are moments when it's up in front and center, but this movie likes communism. It likes Pablo Neruda's communism, at least, and it likes that Mario becomes a communist. Like, they didn't have to make him that political after Neruda left, especially because it wasn't talked about that much between the two of them. But yeah, I like that because I like communism.
Whoa!
What?
Whoa! Not here! Not here! Not here! Bezos is coming. No, what I was gonna say is, and now I can't even fucking remember what I was gonna say about that shit. I thought that there was gonna be a plot point, and obviously you'd seen this before me, and maybe had prior knowledge. But I thought Mario was gonna get involved in like politics because we had that politician.
Yes.
Other than him standing up to them in the kitchen,
And he does,
or
but it's
whatever.
all retconned in the last 5-10 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was like, oh, I thought maybe that was gonna be the second half of the movie, was him getting enough confidence to be like, no, we need running water. I'm gonna run up against this guy who's promising things and won't deliver. That's not what we got. But
yeah, no, that stuff would have worked a lot better. Like you say, yeah, the pacing and plotting. I think like the politics of the movie, Neruda's amount of time on the island versus not on the island were problems. And then kind of seeding some stuff that happens earlier in the movie would have been better.
yeah, I think so too. And so Mario records the sounds, we get all that, and then we find out that Mario was killed in a he was meant to read a poem.
Yeah. Neruda comes back. I don't remember why he comes back to the island, but like 5 years later he comes back or something.
Yeah, I don't know why he did either. Maybe just to see, sightseeing tour or whatever, or maybe he's banished again. Who knows?
Yeah, I do think he gets banished a second time, so maybe that was it. But yeah, he he comes back to the island and doesn't say much. So it's a lot of subtle stuff on his face. When the wife shows him the recording, Beatrice says, "Hey, by the way, he made this for you, but I couldn't part with it because it's his voice. I have his voice, saying these things." And Pablo like stoically listens to it. And then while Pablo's walking around on the beach that he talked to Mario on, it's intercut with his face and Mario at this communist rally where thousands of people, it seems like, I'm not sure where it was. On the mainland, I assume. And he was asked to read a poem that he wrote that he called Song to Pablo Neruda. But it went bad. The fascist government, kind of attacked the rally and Mario was actually killed.
And then the movie ends.
And then you just kind of like, I think that you're supposed to read in the intercut of the black and white stuff. Mario is so happy. He's never been happier in his life to be invited to do this, to be in this crowd, to be next to communists, to be next to poets, that poetry appreciated. So, and then you see Pablo just walking around on the beach kind of stoically, but like, I think that I would read it as if I was making the story. I'm assuming that he's saying, did I ruin this kid's life by showing him a broader world and accidentally getting him obsessed with all these things? And then there's like a very slight smile at the very end where he says, no, I think he would say that hopefully I did what Mario would say, is that you gave me my life.
Right. Yeah. I do like that ending scene with him on the beach, walking on the beach, especially after he's just listened to that whole recording of the all of the sounds. And I know the beach because we had talked about that earlier, the beach scene where he's talking about the waves and using that as a metaphor.
That was one of the best poetry scenes. He even says earlier than that, well, look, you want to write metaphors, just walk slowly down to the beach and they'll happen. They'll come to you. And he says, you promise? He says, I promise. And then later on, when he is like not calling the people simple and not mentioning his friends, he said one of the things he talks about is like missing the walks on the beach.
Yeah. So I liked it. I like that little ending.
Yeah. And again, the movie's not very, doesn't have a lot of cinematography going on except for these random moments. And that last one with the black and white of Mario's happy face in the crowd and the riot versus the slow color walking around on the beach is one of the few times that as a film, all the people who were making the film decided to like sprinkle some filmmaking dust on it.
Yeah. I kind of like, there was a scene where there was like a silhouette of Mario in the moon or whatever. I liked that, and then framing that again with the foosball that he keeps.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It was like kind of like the moon.
The director, the directing of this movie is kind of hands off. It's very just here's the bike going up, here's the scene as they talk. Not a lot of camera movement, not a lot of weird angles. Definitely taking advantage of the beautiful colors of Italy and the beautiful mountains in the background, and really good set designs, good streaks and stuff like that. Everything looks great. But that's all more production. It doesn't. It only occasionally will do something like special with editing or movement.
Yeah. Any other scenes that we missed?
Nope, I don't think so.
All right. Who's your favorite character, or is there a scene stealer? I think there's a scene stealer, but yeah.
It's got to be his boss, the postman.
Yeah.
He's hilarious.
I wish so. Again, maybe with like. I feel like because the postmaster or whatever is so like into Neruda, we only get him like fanboying about Neruda and not actually talking about like communist things and like teaching Pablo and being like, hey, this is my opportunity. You like Pablo Neruda? Here's all the things he's cool with. And like also learning from that guy. But I guess
there's confusion in the movie. I don't know why they may have made that choice on purpose, but there's a confusion in the movie to make the movie very pro-communist, but not talk about communism or its ideas very often, other than like he's the poet of the people,
Yeah. So I love the telegrapher. He's awesome. Or telegrapher. Telegrapher. I like that.
Yeah, and he's funny too. He's got a lot of funny moments because I mean, like one of his best quotes, and I don't think it's a political critique, but it's just like a silly, portrait of a type of person who goes, I'm your boss, you call me superior, but I'm also a communist, so I don't really care about that.
That's just a communist living in a capitalistic world.
Yeah, right.
What you got to do, you know? Be in the world, but not of it.
Yes, that's from the Bible, I believe, right?
Or maybe Dan Brown wrote it. I don't know.
Yeah, one of the two.
They both write the Bible. Who did you like Mario?
Yeah, What, as an actor or as a character?
Do you like Mario better than Neruda? Who is your favorite of those two?
Oh,
Or who do you like more?
Mario stresses me out, and Neruda is just a Chad. I mean, he really is, right? Like he is the stereotype in this movie. I don't know how true it was in Neruda's life. I mean, I do, one of the things I like about him as a poet, he's not my favorite like South American poet, but I love that he was famous for writing sensuous love poems and was so politically left. Because I think you get a lot of famous leftist people who, you know, are too stern, and, you know, they're too like revolutionary or academic, and they kind of miss out on the joy of life when they speak to people or about people, you know, about the everyday things. So Pablo Neruda was great at being like, hey, life is meant to be spent on a beach in the arms of somebody you love. And fascism won't let you do that, like to connect those two concepts. So he was kind of the stereotype you would think of a poet of that type too, Casanova, like an older man, like not pretty, not in great shape, but just like straight backed, tall, confident, sweet, wise, a little grumpy, but at you know, nice at heart. So seeing that portraiture was great. Whereas Mario was a great character, but he stressed me out. Like I had to take care of this little baby, you know?
Yes. It's so early in this film, I was just like, this poor little mushmouth Italian guy. Like he just can't get it out.
You just worry about him a lot. Yeah.
When he had that knife, I was worried about him.
Yeah.
I was like, what are you gonna do, bud?
It all starts from that first scene where they You just can't, once you have that first impression, you're just like, oh, this guy needs supervision.
This guy. Oof. Do you know that Taylor Swift likes Neruda?
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. I did learn this. I believe
that. Yeah. I mean, his beautiful. In fact, the middle of the movie where Mario steals one of his poems, and you know, and pretends he wrote it for Beatrice. Like that's one of the only Neruda poetry you actually hear in the movie, but it's very beautiful. Like naked as a naked grain of rice or whatever. Like that whole part, you hear a lot of lines, and it's really good. Yeah.
It was when she was putting out the album Red. She was like
Taylor Swift album.
Yeah, same. And she said she had a line from Neruda that she really liked, and it was "Love is so short, forgetting is so long."
Oh yeah.
There, yes, thank you, my Swiftie.
I have heard that line.
My Swiftie made sure to get me on that one. Quotes. We've already kind of talked about a couple quotes, but are there any other quotes that stick out?
There's a lot of quotes that also like are delivered so well that when I started writing them down and rereading them outside of its context, they didn't seem as good, but they're just in context really good. Like when you explain it, poetry becomes banal. We poets are all fat. I mean, I like that. He's like, I want to be a poet. And Neruda goes, it's more original to stay a postman. He's like, it's honestly but that's also a communist idea too, where it's like, honestly, you know, a poet is egotistical, trying to get a lot of attention, but to just like take simple joy and performing a simple job is actually a more beautiful thing. But then he goes, besides, you get good exercise. We poets are all fat.
I had that one down as well.
What else do you have?
Poetry doesn't belong to those who write it. It belongs to those who need it.
Yes.
Love that line.
Which is a line that I think he says first. Neruda says to Mario. But then later when Neruda's like, you stole one of my poems and gave it to her, he goes, poetry doesn't belong to the people who write it. It belongs to the people who need it. I need it.
Yeah, I needed it, bud. And then man has no business with the simplicity or the complexity of things.
Yeah, I wrote that one down. That's a really good one. When a man starts to touch you with words, he's not far off with his hands.
Yep, that one. I had that one as well.
Perfect Italian energy.
Let's see. One of mine leads to our F, Marry, Kill that we'll get to. So I'll let it stay.
This is a great one. It's better to say wrong something you're convinced of than to say nice things others want us to say. So he's like, don't worry about like being inarticulate as a poet. Like saying what you mean is always going to be more important than like pleasing others.
Mm-hmm. Even the most sublime ideas sound ridiculous if heard too often.
Yeah, I like that.
That's it.
Eat babies. How can he be Catholic?
I forgot about that. Incredible. Which I had as like my biggest laugh in the movie was that little section.
Yeah, that was really funny. Like, well, he doesn't have any kids. You're like, are you saying he ate his kids? He's like, I'm just saying he doesn't have any kids.
He
In
doesn't have
Russia,
any
communists
kids.
eat babies. How can he be Catholic?
But then you see him crossing it up in there like a good Catholic
Yeah.
on his knees and everything. We're good. He's good.
That's the other stuff I have. Were just kind of little funny ones. Basically,
Yeah.
I guess the only other one I have is when Mario comes. He goes, "I have to talk to you, Don Pablo. I've fallen in love." He goes, "It's not serious. It can be cured."
Yeah, I like that too. Biggest laugh, cry, scares, thrills. I said my biggest laugh. You have anything?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I did cry in this movie.
Oh yeah,
I did. From the part where he starts recording the sounds, and then I find out he's dead.
yeah. It's very moving. Yeah.
Jeez, that got me, man. I was just in it. So yeah, I cried. Real tears.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I had in a cry was Mario's death. It is tragic and very sad for the way the movie to end that way. But I think you have to I don't know. I think you kind of have to let him die as in the story. I think he has to have lived this full. You have to be able to look retrospectively on his life and not just say, now he's going to go live in domestic bliss, which is not a bad way for a movie to end. But he had nothing, knew nothing of himself, gained all of this stuff, lived it all fully. And even if he died young, he lived well. Is kind of, you have to look back and say he lived well.
And we get little Pablito.
Little Pablito, who never got to meet him. I don't know why they had to add that in there.
Oh gosh, that was rough.
Yeah.
That hurt me even more. Most what the fuck or ridiculous moment?
Yeah. He turns out to be a villain, but you don't see him again for 50 minutes, the bad guy. But his entrance into the movie is that there are people slowly carrying a coffin. There's a funeral procession walking down the street, and his little black car just parks right in front of him and just cuts him off and makes them all stop. And then he gets out and then he goes and starts talking to the old lady in the funeral procession. I was like, whoa, you're just gonna park there?
That guy, doesn't he make a move on Beatrice a little bit?
Maybe. Yeah. Especially because of that, they have to have all the workers live with them. And then they're all he's back there, almost cutting his finger off. And all the workers are playing foosball now with his girl.
Yeah.
But I wanted more. I like the scene. I wanted more where he comes back and says, "Oh, you guys got to go home. We don't have the money anymore for the indoor plumbing stuff we were going to do," or something like that. And Mario comes out and is now emboldened and says, I knew this was going to happen. You're a snake." He calls him out. I wish he had called him out more forcefully, but he looks at that guy's slick suit and is his big power as a politician in the face and calls him a snake. And I liked that.
He looks like an Indiana Jones villain.
He does, yeah.
It's very Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, and also the seersucker when Neruda's in his beach pants, his capris, and his in his seersucker suits and hats. It looks really good.
Yeah, that's how I want to dress. That's the life I want.
Yeah,
is live that linen or seersucker life. Chilling on rocky beaches. That sounds great.
Yeah, totally.
I put the foosball.
Yeah, that
was really gross.
Totally.
Best music moment or score. This score did win. Luis Enriquez Bacalov. Beautiful score.
It's very good. It's hard to find one moment because it does feel like one theme with three variations. So there was the opening scene. It's very earnest as well, and I do think it sets the tone immediately. You're about to see a movie with a lot of sweet feelings, a slow movie with a lot of sweet feelings. It's going to be very human because the theme seems very human. And then I did enjoy the romantic love variation on that throughout the Beatrice stuff.
Yeah. I compare this score to Forrest Gump a little bit.
Yeah, it does sound like
it's like an Italian Forrest Gump, and Mario is like an Italian Forrest Gump.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but that makes sense.
But yeah, I like it. It's got that Italian, I don't know. It sounds Italian, but
it's very sweeping while staying quiet and calm.
Yeah. So, I also love I highlighted the tango scene between his Neruda and his wife. I thought that was a really beautiful moment. It's Madraslava or Madraselva tango. So it's an old.
I could have used more of Miranda, right?
What I don't know. It's something. some M word.
I think it's Miranda. I could have used more of her because she seemed great and the relationship was good. And we needed more of him and Neruda together and more moments of that because that's the core of the movie. But also she didn't, she was just disappeared for a lot when they were hanging out, wasn't around. But also she came in and gave him advice about women or read his poetry or, made grumpy Pablo pay a little more attention to Mario. Come on, he's sweet words to you. Mathilde, sorry.
Mathilde.
Yeah.
I agree.
More of a role, and you could have seen you through Mario's eyes and our eyes, we could have seen Neruda as a person more. And she could have had created that community a little bigger than it was. Would be cool.
Yeah. Any other music moments before I go to the? Okay. So for F, Marry, Kill, this was a game time decision. I kind of just made this up. But the line that I want to reference is Dona Rosa saying, when it comes to bed, there's no difference between a poet, a priest, or a communist. So F, Marry, Kill, poetry, communism, Catholicism.
Oh, that's so easy though. You kill Catholicism, you fuck poetry, and you marry communism.
And you marry. I like that. I think that's easy.
It's easy. I have no use for priests. I could talk to God on my own if I wish. Poets are lovers. I mean, you're gonna have a thrill there, and communism's gonna treat you as an equal. Not always historically, but in theory,
So, and that's how I'm gonna do F, Marry, Kill from now on. It's no longer F, Marry, Kill. It's just poetry, priest, or communist.
Hell yeah.
Who do you think gave the best performance in this movie?
I'm gonna say Mario. I mean, I think Philippe Noiret was really great, but it's a very staid performance. He's stoic, right?
Yeah.
And Mario's acting his heart out. That guy, this is his passion project, right?
This is what killed him.
This is what killed him, and he's put it all out there. I think he's very unique. He does have a Roberto Benigni, but then again, America hadn't been introduced to Life is Beautiful hadn't happened. We don't know about Benigni that much, so he is doing an archetype of cinema of the fool with the heart of gold, innocent purity thing, and he does it really well.
Yeah, that's what I had as well. For all the same reasons, after the first 20 minutes when he stopped stressing me out a little bit more, I kind of got into his character, and I was like, okay, you aren't this person. So I like that. I did not do a 95 recast for this one because I don't know anybody I went with American.
That's what I was. Yeah, I didn't. Although I did look it up, and he's basically the same age as Benigni. Okay. 1 year apart, the actors are. So it could have been. I mean, that's the obvious Italian one. So he's the only one I can name who's actually the right age as that guy. But I did do them both with American actors.
I did English actors or American actors for 2025, but I couldn't do one I didn't even think to do that for 95. Don't know why.
Yeah, they're not very good, honestly. Giovanni Ribisi.
I think that's good.
I'm trying to find a mumbly. He's not as lanky as I'd like him to be, but mumbly, innocent people who could kind of wake up. I think a young Ribisi could do that. And then I had Anthony Hopkins maybe playing Neruda.
Oh yeah, that's very that's a good one. Yes, definitely 95. He is very Neruda-esque. You could also, I'm trying to think of any other actors during that time. Maybe what's that French actor? Gerard Depardieu.
Oh, Depardieu could do it. Yeah,
he would have been.
I played around with other actors that seem, because Anthony Hopkins isn't that old, but seems old, so he can play it.
Yes,
and I thought about Connery a little bit if he was a better actor. Yeah. And then, but I was maybe even Walter Matthau could do an American version of it, a grumpy old guy, right? Grumpy old man. But then could come through and maybe deliver some of those lines. So it's hard to Google actors of a certain age from 30 years ago.
Yeah,
to kind of get inspiration.
Who'd you have for 2025?
I think number one with a bullet, the only one I thought of while I was watching for Pablo is Jonathan Pryce. Two Popes. Thinking Jonathan Pryce from the Two Popes kind of has the old big nose thing, kind of sweetness, but can play a grumpy old man too a little bit.
I get Jonathan Pryce confused with somebody else. I think it's another Pryce.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's not Vincent Price. Maybe it's another Jonathan. Anyway, another British actor. But yes, I like Jonathan.
Yeah, the guy
I like
across from
Jonathan.
Hopkins in The Two Popes is kind of how I
Yeah.
remember him, because he's also played really good roles in other things that are very different. But he has the face, the balding, round face with a bulbous nose, kind of like a jowl. And yeah, I think he could pull it off.
For Neruda, I had because they kind of look a little bit thinning hair up here. Bob Odenkirk.
Oh, Bob Odenkirk as Pablo Neruda is, yeah. I mean, I would watch that.
Or Stephen Fry was the other one that I had.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just for that,
Stephen Fry would love it. He would love that role. He's like, I want to play a great poet for sure. I don't know. I like him for that. I don't know why I'm making fun of him for it, but yeah, he would.
I think he already did. He was Oscar Wilde. So.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he's a good Oscar Wilde for sure.
Yeah.
And then I had two for Mario in 2025. Problematic choice, Ezra Miller.
Ooh, yeah.
I think could play the lanky awkwardness. And then Dev Patel.
Ooh, Dev Patel would be fun.
I thought that
he's got that, yeah.
And honestly, he's proven to us that he can stretch his acting pretty wide too at this point.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see more interesting Dev Patel roles.
I went with Andrew Garfield.
Oh, that's a good one
for Mario, just because he kind of gave me those. I was like, he could do it.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah. Anybody else that you cast?
Mm-mm.
Fun facts or not fun facts about this film. So if
not
everybody does
just the one thing.
The one big thing, though, that Massimo Troisi actually postponed heart surgery so he could complete this film. And the day after filming was completed, within hours of them completing filming, he suffered a fatal heart attack and died.
Yes. After final cut, final wrap, 12 hours later, he has a heart attack and dies.
Oh, man. Wild. But yeah, this was his passion project and had been working on this for over 10 years, I think. Like, trying to adapt or get I think that's how it went down.
Yeah, and he was not, it wasn't just a sudden heart attack because he was putting off a surgery that was recommended. He was very, very sick while filming it. He filmed 1 hour a day. Apparently they had the best body double in the world, that looked exactly like him, so they could do a lot of like scenes with, shoot a lot of things with him out. But yeah, I mean, he was sick the whole time.
Yeah,
which would be a performance even more impressive.
His body type reminds me of if you remember this character from Saving Private Ryan, but Giovanni Berbisi made me think of this. But the Corporal Upham,
yeah, it's been so long.
He's like the guy that comes with them that like says, "Hey, we should let that German guy go instead of killing him."
Oh, yeah.
And then the German guy comes back, but he's kind of got that like nervousness, nebbishness, with the like super lanky.
Yeah. What about because that just made me think of what's his name? Silicon Valley in The Office. The lanky nerdy guy.
Oh,
who I have seen in a serious role. I mean, I think he's like Gabe in The Office, and then he's like
Zach Woods. Yeah,
I think I've seen him in a serious role. I'm trying to remember, but he's got that physicality as well.
He's like a Frankenstein.
Yeah. Watching him ride the bike would be funny already. So you're already going there.
It'd have to be one of those big wheel ones. Those what are those things called? A penny something?
Yeah, I don't know. Penny farthing.
Yeah. Let's see here. What other did you find anything else besides him like dying and
not that interesting? But it did. This did run in New York City for 2 years, even after it was released on video. I don't know why it was beloved, or maybe the only good art house film that year. But it was in theaters for like 2 full years in New York City, which is interesting.
Yeah. Here's a fun fact about the Academy Award, though. This was the only Best Actor Oscar-nominated performance that also had a Best Picture nomination, too.
This year or after?
No, just this year.
Okay.
So, like, none of the other 4 actors were in an Oscar, a Best Picture nominee. Yeah.
Well, I wonder, because we know what some of them are. There's so many spectacles that get Best Pictures in the mid-'90s, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I mean,
it's Leaving Las Vegas,
Nixon yet, have we? Like, I'm surprised he's not a Best Actor nominated, right? Braveheart.
Yeah, he didn't get nominated for this.
No, that's crazy. But yeah, and then what? Apollo 13 is great. Like you said, that Massimo knocked him off the best actor list potentially. But I don't know. The spectacle of the Apollo 13 as a movie, I know we've talked about it a lot already, is like so big that I don't know that like even Tom Hanks or Gary Sinise or whatever like stand out as great actors in it.
Yeah, and then Babe, it's a supporting role.
Mhm.
Sense and Sensibility would be supporting roles. So yeah, everything else is a big like a meaty role for Anthony Hopkins again for Nixon. Leaving Las Vegas for Nicolas Cage, who I think ends up winning this year. I can't remember any of the other two.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Oh, Sean Penn for Dead Men Walking.
Oh, really? I don't know anything about that movie.
Yeah, well, we're watching it this year.
No,
So
I can't wait.
can't wait. I think it's a Tim Robbins film. He
Oh, like
directed
directed?
it. Yeah, and Susan Sarandon and him are in it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Sean Penn. So I thought that was interesting. And then also the only other thing that I had listed here on this is that in 94, to promote the film, they published the soundtrack, which includes the film score, but it also includes Neruda's poems recited by like a bunch of celebrities. And there's 31 tracks on there.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I might check that out.
Yeah. So a lot of good famous 90s actors are the ones doing that. So like a fine wine and dish, if you could pair this with another movie for a double feature, what would you choose?
I have a short list. I mean, and a couple are obvious. There's a great Pablo Neruda documentary called Neruda.
Okay.
That would be a good thing to pair it with. But then Cinema Paradiso, again, using a specific art medium to make this very human story about an entire life, the themes of both of those. And you get Philippe Noiret in both. You get one of the most interesting endings again from a movie I've ever seen in Cinema Paradiso. So that would be in my heart because I connect those two movies together. But it also makes a lot of sense. It's an Italian film within a certain 10-year period. And then there are just a lot of movies that are about writers or like fictionalized writer things. So I had like Midnight in Paris, and though it's not great, maybe like a Finding Forrester is kind of is kind of a similar thing. You find an obscure poet who's trying to stay alone and like inspires this young person to become a writer as well.
Yeah, I almost put down Finding Forrester on my list, and I was like, I'm not sure. I went a little bit more silly on mine, but the one that I do have about poetry is a Jim Jarmusch film, and I don't know if you've seen this. Maybe you have, but it's called Patterson.
Oh, I saw that come up on like movies about writers, but I don't know anything about it really.
Yeah, no, Patterson. I loved Patterson when I
Yeah.
watched it. It is, what is that guy's name from Girls and all? Adam Driver. Adam
Oh, yeah,
Driver.
sure.
Yeah, it is just like Adam Driver is a poet. He is a bus driver in Patterson, New Jersey, and he loves his wife and his dog. That's the plot. So
That sounds awesome.
it is. It's great. And I don't know why. Like, there's something about like something soothing. You see him do the same thing routine every day in that movie. And there's something very soothing about it.
Well,
And
I talked about that at the beginning, and I talked about it a little bit with Nobody's Fool. That I don't know, like it's not going to be everybody's favorite movie, but I wish we would more regularly make movies that are about the simple joys of being human, like positive movies about growth and the adventures of life that feel safe and inspiring, but not overly cheesy or dramatic. I don't know. There's some perfect like balance in there that I think Il Postino does really well. And so I'd like more of those. Maybe I'm getting older to the sense that I want to see like stories about like just kind of regular people living their lives well.
yeah, no, I recommend Patterson to you a lot.
Okay.
It's got that Jarmusch feel to it, but it is very, I mean, like I said, it was comforting to me to watch that movie. So
My partner's a Jarmusch fan, so she'd probably love to watch it too.
yeah. And then I picked two movies that are basically just the Cyrano story. Because this one did feel a little bit like Cyrano.
Yeah.
And it is sad like Cyrano. But these two movies are not sad like Cyrano, and that is Roxanne, starring Steve Martin,
Oh, yeah.
and The Truth About Cats and Dogs, which
Oh,
comes
yes,
out
yeah.
in like 96. Uma Thurman and Janine Garofalo, and Janine Garofalo is the Cyrano character.
Oh, I didn't know that's what that movie was about. That's interesting.
Yeah. So, I wanted to just pair it with a Cyrano, but I didn't like any of the Cyrano adaptations except for the musical one with what's his face from Game of Thrones.
I don't know. I
God.
don't know it.
I
I don't think I've ever seen
I'm
this
struggling.
Cyrano adaptation. I've only seen like references, you know.
I remember calling you after I watched the Cyrano musical.
Yeah, that was vaguely familiar. That movie was. I was like, yeah, I do know that happened. It was probably because you were telling me about it.
No, I think if you do choose, watch Patterson, watch the Cyrano musical with Peter Dinklage. That's who Cyrano is.
Oh yeah,
In the
that does sound
musical.
great.
Yeah, it's very beautiful, very pretty movie. So, on a scale of 1 to 5, how likely are you to rewatch this movie?
I think I put 3. Yeah, 3 out of 5. I
It needs
could
a
see it again in
Criterion.
10 more years. Yeah,
It needs a Criterion release or
it should
Criterion
be
to.
preserved movie. It is a movie to revisit with its certain beautiful vibes, and because it's a little gauzy, you kind of forget the details and you can kind of rediscover them again.
Not an easy movie to find anywhere.
Yeah. I think
Streaming.
I think it's just long enough ago that it's like lost media halfway, but like
Yeah.
not so long enough ago that it's like we got to preserve this immediately. But it won't go anywhere. El Postino, I think, was it's beloved by enough people that people will search it out and keep it around.
Yeah. I gave it a 3 on rewatchability. I'd like to watch this if it again, I think.
Yeah,
If you had to rate it out of 5 stars, what would you give it?
I gave it
Overall.
4 stars.
Yeah, I give it 4 stars as
Very
well.
a very flawed movie, but a very good movie and a very unique movie as far as the many I've seen. It stands out, and I think if anybody ever brings it up in conversation, I'm like, "Oh, El Postino, yeah, let's talk about it for a minute." Like
Yeah.
feelings, and remember this part and that part, and this is so cool.
I think there are a lot of movies that could have knocked it out of the Best Picture race. I'm not mad that this
Yeah.
movie exists in the Best Picture. I'm not mad that Babe is in the Best Picture race,
Mm.
but I do think there are some other movies this year that are of higher quality that just did not get
Yeah, I can
recognized.
understand. I don't need this to be
And it-
nominated for Best Picture.
And honestly, I was kind of bringing this up at the beginning, and then I forgot the tangent that I was going down. But I wonder if, like, the Academy or the Oscars or whatever, they always have like kind of weird moments where they recognize specific movies as to not have to recognize like darker movies that are like more sinister or evil or any of the. So like, I wonder if they were choosing more saccharine things at this time,
Well,
with what was going on in 95 to 96 to.
I think we've had this conversation on the podcast a couple times. I mean, I think it was maybe a year ago we had this conversation about me like trying to parse out whether it was my nostalgia of what it was like for me to be that age in the mid 90s, but to feel like the mid 90s were a very safe, more PGG rated time, and that there was like some deep conservatism and prudishness in culture still compared to like the grittiness of the 70s, or the revolution of the 60s. It was definitely in like an ebb of let's keep things simple and pleasant and not disturbing in any way or not graphic in any way. But that, things were generally more, nice.
Yes. Yeah. Cause I mean, we got a Scorsese film later this year. We have a Fincher film. We have,
we have like 90s independent cinema too coming out, and Scorsese riding on like his 80s, cinema stuff. So you've got your Goodfellas and stuff like that coming out, and your Tarantino on the way up or whatever. But the monoculture, once it's like Michael's, it wants even a Braveheart has a lot of sadness and violence in it, but it's an inspirational like Disney-fied kind of story, and your Apollo 13s and your Forrest Gump, these ran my childhood. So sweet movies were very, very popular in the mid 90s.
Yeah, it's great. It's interesting to see and like when that turning point is. I think it's 99 is that turning point for this, because I think next year it's like English Patient, which is just your typical epic romance movie, that David Lean-esque kind of movie that we've seen is safe too. Titanic happens again, another love story, and I think it is around 99, even though Shakespeare in Love wins that year. Over Saving Private Ryan, but I think that's the line, and then it turns.
Well, and then you have that brief period where there was this backlash against like being told you're living in a second 50s, a suburban delight. So I mean, you have like cringy things like American Beauty, but you also start to get like Matrix, right? Stepford Wives, Pleasantville, like these things about like you're being lied to, and this suburban perfection is actually flawed and gross underneath.
Truman Show,
stuff like that. That are a little more satirical backlash on what the mid 90s had been. The 60s in cinema was like that. Hollywood cinema in the 60s was very saccharine and G-rated. While all the stuff was going on, you don't get a lot of like big releases that are challenging any social things until the 70s. It's all independent film.
I was about to say, I think that's when we get like Best Picture winners like Oliver and Tom Jones and like some maybe yeah, it's just not great.
You have all this counterculture stuff going on, but it had not reached the mainstream Hollywood thing at all until the 70s.
Yeah, 67 to 69.
You get like Easy Rider, I think like 69, right? Or like 67 maybe, but yeah, 69. And that blew people's minds to be able to see that in theaters. And that was like the first movie people said like reference to the hippie generation and stuff like that.
So interesting to look back and look at the times that we had, and like people always talking about like nostalgia and like, oh, things were better then, or 90s movies were better, 90s music was better. And it's like, no, I think like it is this period of time where it is like the 50s of the,
and especially this whole, for people our age to like try to understand, when we try to understand your own childhood and then understand culture around it as a lens to maybe what you thought the world was or the world seemed like to you based on what you were, obviously most kids are being shown kid stuff, right? But those things, that kid stuff was saying about the world also affected how you thought the world existed.
And I think obviously 9/11 is a big thing that happens in the middle there of all this. That I think also, you know, you get more inspirational movies at the time, but then you're like, oh, this is the real world, and we get more darker.
Yes, I mean, we're not the first people to say that 9/11 changed the world in a lot of ways, but it cascaded an explosion of. We're going to talk about the world in more real, difficult ways and technologies. Everything changed a lot then.
Yeah. Poetic Justice, somebody said, they'd watch this with Poetic Justice. Great. Well, I gave it this 4, and we got 4s across the board. But that's it for Il Postino. Big thank you to our guest, Ryan, the plumber's poet. Before we wrap up, let's hear your recent movie recommendations.
I've been watching a lot of movies. None of them stood out. They're all like curiosities I was catching up on. I was doing my thing where whatever's leaving at the end of the month on Criterion Channel gave me a broad things to watch. So I rewatched some things like The Hours and A Face in the Crowd, which are great movies. I saw Portrait of a Lady for the first time. Jane Campion.
I was going to ask Portrait of a Lady or Portrait of a Lady?
Portrait of a Lady, the Jane Campion one.
Yeah.
The Henry James novel. I think I watched The Menu finally. I made a little list of all the movies people have been yapping about for the last 5 years. I've never seen any of them. Pretty good. The one movie that was a surprising get, and on that list, I put it on when my girlfriend was around because she's a big Jaws fan. And she thank God, has a weird taste in men, because she just can't get enough like young Richard Dreyfuss, like a scrappy little dog. And I'm like, I'm glad your taste in men is weird, because that really benefits me. But The Goodbye Girl is a movie that Neil Simon wrote, not in the play adaptation, but he wrote the screenplay for, and it's Neil Simon's wife, whose name I forget, and Richard Dreyfuss doing a Neil Simon style like rom-com in 1977. And what's crazy is Richard Dreyfuss wins the Best Actor Oscar for this movie. If you watch it, it'll blow your mind that Richard Dreyfuss ever got a Best Actor Oscar. He beats out like even though Neil Simon and Woody Allen have a similar like very New York Jewish patter to their speech and comedy, he beats out Woody Allen and Annie Hall for the Oscar that year in 1977. My girlfriend fell in love with it. I thought it was very funny and charming. It's a little problematic in modern days, but it's very sweet at the time. Just a manic actor is forced to live with a woman who gets left by another guy and has a kid to raise. And they slowly fall in love. The Goodbye Girl.
Okay, very.
And you'll see, you get to see Richard Dreyfuss being like, I'm swinging for the fences. I'm manic and I'm throwing things around and I'm screaming and yelling and I'm doing weird voices all the time and picking the kid up and throwing him around. So it's got good energy, and it's very sweet compared to all the dark, long movies I was watching all month.
He beats out Richard Burton, Marcello Mastroianni, and John Travolta.
John Travolta for Best Actor in Saturday Night Fever, which is crazy because this movie I think most people forgot exists.
Yeah, that's crazy. I've never.
If you have Criterion Channel, I think you still have mine. Hit me up in Discord if you maybe want a login, but it's there till the end of the month, and it's a good little hidden gem of rom-coms.
Love that. No, I'll check that out. I like Neil Simon. I like the Neil Simon play. I like the Neil Simon adaptations. I've never seen any plays
of his. That's not true. I did see Brighton Beach Memoir with my grandma once. Yeah, I've read every single Neil Simon play. I bought the collected versions. They're a lot of them are similar, but when he gets a little heartfelt later in his career and does Biloxi Blues, got turned into a good movie. Lost in Yonkers is good, and Brighton Beach. Those are really beautiful movies. But the older stuff, he was like credited for bringing Jewish immigrant New York rhythms and comedy. He would just write it like they were his family, his New York Jewish family, and just make the characters white people. And then that made America go like, we love this guy. These people are hilarious, right? Whereas if he had maybe like written it in the 50s and 60s as like a New York immigrant family, it may not have hit as hard. But yeah, I love Neil Simon.
Yeah. Did he do Murder by Death?
Yes, because he also did screenplays. I was so confused because I didn't remember Goodbye Girl. I assumed it was an adaptation of one of his like 30 plays, but it's actually just for he wrote both of those just for the screen. Murder by Death is great.
Yeah, you turned me onto that one. You were like, you like Clue?
It is like a little like kind of weird Clue version of Clue.
Yeah. Yeah. What else? Anything else?
Oh no, I didn't want to share. I read a great book called Babel. It's been out for a while. R.F. Kuang, Kuang. I'm going to say it. If you like Harry Potter kind of stuff, but you also maybe want a version that's a little intellectually elevated, it's a 1-book series in an alternate history where Victorian era, where Oxford University, the only magical thing in this world is that linguistics and etymology can be magic. And the colonialist Britons have discovered that you can carve words through connections in words to do magical things, like make guns shoot faster or more precise, to make cars move by themselves. And so it's kind of got like a Harry Potter vibe where these 4 outsiders are like best friends in year 1 in the Tower of Babel in the middle of Oxford, where they make all the silver and do all the magic. And then it becomes like anti-colonialist, like kind of Harry Potter come apart. It's pretty great.
Okay. I recognize the author because I had a list on my to be read page for a long time.
Yeah, that's what they became most famous for, and they wrote this as a one-off, different world, different thing. But I've got the Poppy War trilogy on my list now because I did think it's not the best thing I've ever read or the best fantasy I've ever read, but it's just the first time in a long time that I got pulled into like a alternate history fiction, fantasy fiction. Yeah.
Also the person that wrote that is
That's
28
crazy.
years old now.
Oh, wow.
Today.
Yeah, that's crazy that young because they've written a lot of books. And also this really appealed to me because there's so much like little footnotes about etymology and where words come from. And that's a nerdy habit of mine to talk about Latin and Greek and to be an Anglophile and to like stories about kids who are like in boarding schools and colleges together. So it brings all that together pretty well. Babel.
Okay. She also writes Star Wars short stories too.
You get it though.
Good for her. Yeah. I'm gonna look into. I'll add that to my list. My ever growing reading list because I never read. Cool. I don't know if there's been anything out of the ordinary for me watching wise. I've watched some pretty terrible movies on Netflix recently. Trap and Craven the Hunter were movies that I decided to watch.
Sentence about Craven the Hunter?
My I'm definitely not craving a sequel.
You got it.
That's it. That's my no, that was it. But everybody's talking about this Netflix series right now called Adolescence. It's four episodes. They're hour-long episodes for the most part, and they're all filmed in one continuous shot.
4 episodes and it's over, or that's how much is out? Okay.
Yeah. It tells the story of an teen boy who gets accused of a crime, the very first episode, and just kind of shows you different time periods during this, the process of this crime, and then different viewpoints of the crime that was committed. So it's very interesting, and I was really drawn to specifically the third episode. Really just was like, damn. So really good acting is the one thing I say. Like the cool thing is the one shot thing, like that's to get you in, but the acting performances are really good. I think it's Tommy from the movie Snatch is like the main dad character. Really fantastic. Good. This guy's so good in it.
That's cool.
So I would check that out. I've been watching some of the ones that we have for our extra credit, and I'm excited to talk about those extra credit movies this coming week. And then I also saw a Netflix comedy called The Breaker Uppers. It's a New Zealand comedy, and it's kind of like Dirty Work meets Bridesmaids in a way, because like these two best friends have a business where they break up with people for hire.
Fun.
So yeah, that's like the dirty work aspect of it. It was fun. It was cool. Nice little New Zealand comedy for you. So yeah.
I need some lighter stuff, or I'm watching some slop. I've got to say that I am like pirating all the Fast and Furious movies in a row slowly. And I put on some random slop when I'm trying to read, so I can ignore it a little bit. I'm doing that. And then last night, my girlfriend started watching Desperate Housewives, which I've always wanted to see, and now I've seen like 5 episodes of. Now I'm in. It's pretty good.
And then you got to introduce her to Once Upon a Time.
No. I didn't watch all of Once Upon a Time. I had 3 seasons, maybe 4 of me. I think I'm going to use that. I've already got her watching Psych, and that's enough at the moment. But eventually, I have to get her into Gilmore Girls.
Slowly. She's never seen Gilmore Girls.
I think she had like a little bit of a chip on her shoulder against it at first, thinking certain things about it. But I've been wearing that down. She wants to watch it now. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Let's do it. Billmore Boys. We're coming. And you can get more information about the Billmore Boys by joining our Discord server. And you are always welcome to follow us on Instagram or check out my account on Letterboxd. Next Sunday, we're finishing off our Oscars in our theme of And the Oscar Goes To, where we talk about the 5 films nominated at the 96 Oscars. Next week, you can take our lives, but you can never take our podcast. We're talking about Braveheart. And then this Wednesday, for extra credit, we are doing Who Run the World, which are all films by women, about women, and for women. You've still got some time to watch them if you want to catch up with us. We're talking about Waiting to Exhale, The Incredibly True Adventure of Two Girls in Love, How to Make an American Quilt, and Boys on the Side. That pod will be Wednesday, March 26th at 6 p.m. Eastern. And we still have we're finishing up our month at 5295 Music. So join us Tuesday for that. This week's album is the 1995 revival of How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. I've never listened to the music before on that, so pretty excited to talk about that one. But thank you all for tuning in to 52/1995. We'll see you next